So the battle at the bridge finishes Chelsea 2, Tottenham Hotspur 2. We'll get to all the incidents shortly, Shaka. First of all, was a draw a fair result?
I'm not so sure. If I'm Chelsea, I'm feeling a little hard done by. I thought Chelsea were by far the more dominant of the two in the first 45 in particular. And I've been saying all along, my concern around Chelsea this season was where those goals are going to come from, whether they had the firepower to, again, see them finish third. No, of course, they finished third last season with two strikers, Timo Werner and Lukaku, who misfired more times than it seems they were successful and have now since moved on. But they got two goals, and two goals that came from defenders and Koulibaly and Reece James in their victory over Everton. That came from the penalty spot. So I guess in some ways, I still have those concerns, even though we are talking about the Chelsea who dominated and scored two goals against one of the teams I expect to finish top four.
Did you expect more from Spurs today?
I did. I thought Spurs were very disappointing. As I just said, I think Spurs, at the very least, would be expecting to finish top four. That's where I have them. And to see them misfire as badly as it did, was a real surprise. I just wondered where that spark was going to come from. All of last season, it was Heung-min Son when needed. I could barely remember what Son did all game long today. But for the header at the very end from Harry Kane, similarly, I'm not sure what their meaningful contributions were. So that for me was a surprise, but I'll stop short of saying concern, as it's only the second game of the season.
It was a bit of a nasty undercurrent that went through the whole game, and it kind of boiled over a couple of times. It's a fixture that's passionate. Are we going to look at this game when the dust has settled and we're going to point fingers at those that should have known better? Or is it just something that we expect from a game like this? And let's not get on our high horse here. We enjoyed all that.
I think it's something that I'm not sure the dust ever really settles between these two, especially how this game panned out, everything that went on after the final whistle. As a neutral, you kind of enjoy that the spectacle that was. Whether you're involved with that club at a higher level, particularly, or either club at a higher level, how you feel about that. But I think a lot of it was understandable. I really don't understand how there wasn't a foul called in the build-up to Spurs' first goal, and that just in what is already a fairly incendiary fixture between these two, that just set it alight, and from there simply was no throwing any kind of dust on that fire.
Let's take a look at the goals. It's new signing to new signing for Chelsea's opener, and several Spurs players deciding, well, why do I need to mark Koulibaly in the box?
Yeah, let me just say, my concern around Chelsea has been they don't have the striker to score goals. Now I'm thinking what Chelsea really need to do is sign a centre-back and let Koulibaly play up front. Because goodness me, that was a volley of the highest order. If Erling Haaland or Harry Kane themselves had produced that, we would be swooning non-stop for weeks. Koulibaly, a centre-back, produced that for a volley? I'm not sure anybody saw that coming. My goodness, what an opening goal that was.
Hojbjerg's goal was decent as well, with Richarlison in an offside position, but not interfering.
Now, hold on. Let me just say, because we had this discussion, I can't remember the fixture last season, about players being in an offside position.
Okay, what's your take on this one?
Far enough out. And it's if he's offside and in the vision of the goalkeeper, it has to be given, whether it's 3 yards out or 16 yards out. He's in an offside position, and he's impeding the view of the goalkeeper. So we had this discussion last year because I heard this explanation or this reason given as to, oh, well, he was this far out. No, I totally disagree. If you're in an offside position and you're in my line of sight, it does not matter to me as a goalkeeper whether you're 3 yards out or whether you're 16 yards out, you're in an offside position. End of story. Should have been given.
I think this is a good point. It's one I want to take forward, because this isn't just a case of you being a goalkeeper and saying, oh, this is unfair. I understand. The problem here is the way that the law is written. Because if the player in an offside position doesn't make a play on the ball, he is deemed not to be in an offside position, which I can disagree with. Maybe not in a situation like this. However, where the ball ends up, had Richarlison not have been there, you could argue the goalkeeper might have got there. But I think the problem here, Shaq, is the letter of the law and the way that it is written. Because where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line as far as the goalkeeper's line of vision? Is it going to be a direct line of vision? That's why this is a bit of a grey area, and I don't like the way that the law is written in your defence.
Right. No. For me, it's not just about making a play at the ball. You're obstructing the goalkeeper.
Yep,
if you're fair. In his line of vision, you're obstructing the goalkeeper. The ball is on the floor as it's hit by Hojbjerg. So it's not an argument to be said that it went over the head of Richarlison and you lost sight of it, or you should have seen it. Whatever it is. I don't think you can excuse this away as, well, he didn't make a play on the ball, or Mendy had more than enough time to react. No. As a goalkeeper, when somebody strikes the ball at this level of the game, your movement is near to immediate. And if it isn't, you aren't playing at this level of the game. So to simply say, well, Richarlison was 16 yards out, or whatever it is, and therefore Mendy had more than enough time, I think is totally disingenuous and shows a misunderstanding of the position and how goalkeepers have to react at the highest level. This is not Sunday League we're talking about.
No.
This is the highest level of football.
I'm with you on this. And they'll point to the wording inactive and active. I think in this instance or other instances, it is possible to be active while being inactive, like Richarlison was.
Wow, if you're inactive, then come off the field. If you're on the field, as far as I'm concerned, you're fairly active. And if you're active and actively obstructing the goalkeeper, I'm not sure how you just dismiss it as well. He didn't make a play for the ball. For me, it's not so much a grey area. It's not so much a misinterpretation of the law. It's a misunderstanding of the goalkeeping position, in my mind.
Okay, let's move on. I'm trying to work out the Chelsea formation when Reece James scored to put them 2-1 up, because he started as the right centre-back. They made a lot of changes. He was kind of playing either as a right wing-back or more of a kind of right midfielder in a 4 when he scores.
The amazing thing for me is how long he stood in that position, wide open. And that for me is the concern for Antonio Conte. How Reece James, regardless of Chelsea's formation, how he stands, because that the ball, Reece James was in the box when the ball first came into the box, and then it went out wide on Chelsea's left, Spurs right, and there were a couple of challenges come in, and then it comes back around, and Reece James is standing in the exact same position in acres of space. Now, how that's allowed from a Spurs perspective, I really don't know. And that for me is the bigger question. You know, Spurs wide backs, whether they play it as a back 5 or back 3 and 2 wing backs or a flat back 4, you know they're going to get forward, especially Reece James. To allow Reece James that kind of space for that long, it's more than just an oversight. That's a mistake.
The equalising goal, practically 6th minute of added time, it was one of the last pieces of action that took place. Just before that, Mendy had produced a good save. Cucurella's hair pulling or pulling it, whatever. There's a lot going on. But for those of us that play fantasy football and fantasy Premier League, many who started with Harry Kane got rid of him last week. Spurs scored 4. He didn't get any. And he not only punished those who sold him in fantasy Premier League, but he punished Chelsea. That, it's easy to look at kind of mistakes for Chelsea. That is the sign of a top-class player. He's so good in the air. And what a delivery for the equaliser.
Great ball in, great header. But and while there's a lot you can take away from that, my biggest takeaway is a side to Spurs that I don't think we've seen for a long time. A side that simply refuses to be beaten. No, not to say that they won't have their moments, but so often we talk about top football clubs, and we've spoken about it this weekend, teams who just never seem to give in, who always just somehow manage to keep themselves in the game. And even when they're second best for long periods of the 90, as Spurs were, let's be honest, somehow find a way to grab something out of the game. And that's exactly what Spurs did. Harry Kane, right place, right time. And as much as this is just a striker running in to a crowded box for a header, the deftness of Harry Kane's header just speaks volumes about his quality as a finisher, as someone who just knows where the goal is, regardless of where they're standing in the box, regardless of how many times you bump or push him. It really was a top quality striker's finish. But that just kind of underlined who I think Spurs have become under Antonio Conte.
Yeah, it's a never say die approach. They might not have been at their best, but they get a point away from home, and goodness knows how important that could be come the end of the season. You mentioned top quality there, and something that's always top quality is our ESPN FC colleague Dale Johnson when he does his VAR review on Twitter on a Monday. And I'm looking forward to reading this because there's a lot to get through. Now, one of the things you mentioned earlier was Bentancur's challenge. He actually stops because I think he thinks he's fouled. There might be one replay that's... Yeah, there might be one replay that suggests he might got a touch of the ball, but Anthony Taylor, the referee, suggests that he does. With regards to VAR, one of the things this season that might change and has changed a little bit is that they're not going to go back as far as they used to. And there's different phases of play that come after that. Where's the line that we draw as far as how far back you go? Because if the referee looks at that again, he's probably going to say, you know what, I think I was wrong. That was probably a foul. But if they're not going to go back that far, it gives us something else to complain about, doesn't it?
Yeah, and listen, VAR really is an exact science, and one that we're still getting used to. Now, how far back we go all depends on who's wanting that call. You know, if you're Chelsea, you make every argument that should go all the way back. But for argument's sake, if that play happened 2 minutes before, do you go that far back? It all depends on who's punished. And over the course of using VAR, we're trying to find what works best in the best interest of the game, because we're never going to satisfy everyone, as I just mentioned. If you feel aggrieved, you are happy to go all the way back to the start of the game if that's what it takes. But we have to find what's in the best interest of the game. And that, for me, is one I think you assess at the end of the season, when you take all that data into account and you make those calls. Now, coming into this season, we knew that VAR wasn't going to go as far back. We knew that referees were going to allow a little bit more physicality in the game. And maybe that's where you start to explain how that call was not made or why that review didn't go as far back. As I mentioned off the top, I thought it was a foul. I thought Anthony Taylor should have seen it in real time. I thought that was a refereeing mistake. I am far, far less inclined to put this on VAR's doorstep than saying Anthony Taylor should have done better. Because at the end of the day, as much as we keep talking about VAR and how we discuss how far back we can go and what calls can be made and changed, the referee in the middle is still expected to call this game at a certain level. We're talking about one of the top leagues in world football. We're talking about one of the best referees in world football. And that is just a refereeing mistake. Let's not, in my opinion, and you mentioned Dale Johnson's article on Monday, this is not one for VAR. We make a decision in what's in the best interest of the game, and you stick by that. If it falls outside of that window, so be it. You take that on the chin and move on. What VAR does not exclude is referees refereeing the game in real time.
Well, you just look forward in that move, and then you get the Richarlison inactive and active, so VAR can still have a look at it to keep everybody happy. I want to end with one thing.
It was all good for a punch up between Tuchel and Conte. So
that was lively. I want to end with one thing about each team, and I'm going to give you issues-wise. There's a lot of positives, but let's focus on things that they could maybe do better going forward. The one thing for Chelsea is putting the ball in the back of the net, signing a striker. Reece James put a world-class delivery in, and Kai Havertz couldn't score. Good player, Kai Havertz, but he's not a number 9, so they need a striker. Spurs need to sort out their defence, because against Southampton on match day 1, it was too easy for James Ward-Prowse to score after a good cutback, after the ball got to the byline. Defensively, a bit all at sea. Today, again, you mentioned Reece James. How much time has he got in the box? So Chelsea's attack, Spurs' defence. How pressing are each of those two things for both Thomas Tuchel and Antonio Conte?
I think the greater concern is for Tuchel and Chelsea and getting that striker. Because while I truly believe you can fix a lot of Spurs errors on the training ground, and Antonio Conte will, I'm fairly certain of that. I just feel that finding that striker who will give you 20 goals a season. I'm not even asking for Mo Salah and Harry Kane and Erling Haaland numbers. I'm asking for somebody to give you 20, 25 goals a season. I don't think that there are many out there for Chelsea. So that for me is the bigger concern. Another big concern, which kind of was lost in what was an incredible 90 minutes of football, is N'Golo Kante going down with what looks to me, like a hamstring injury again. I mean, Kante is such an incredible football player who's had his injury issues of late. You're hoping for the best for him, for both club and country, with the World Cup to come, and that didn't look good. That's a concern. That's another concern for Thomas Tuchel.
This is a better point for Spurs than it is for Chelsea. It finishes at the Bridge, the Battle of the Bridge. Chelsea 2, Tottenham Hotspur 2.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.